Let me tell you a story. It's about a life that, from the outside looking in, seemed absolutely perfect. But on the inside, it was secretly crumbling under the weight of this invisible burden. It's a story about burnout, really, and that long, hard journey of finding yourself again after you've completely disappeared. My life looked perfect. I mean, that one line just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? That feeling that the image you project to the world is hiding a reality that's, well, a whole lot harder.
So this is Claudia, and on paper, she has it all. 34 years old, a housewife, a mom to 3 kids, a loving wife. You know the type. She's the one holding everything together, the absolute anchor for her entire family.
But that perfection, it's really just a facade, and it's built on a foundation of constant, unseen work. I mean, think about it. The house is always clean, the kids are always healthy, the meals are always on the table. All of that is powered by one single thing. Claudia was always available. Her availability was the engine that kept the whole machine running. And this quote, it just perfectly illustrates the hidden cost. Her husband would smile, so proud, when friends praised her cooking. But he had no idea about the personal sacrifice behind it. The lost sleep, that little bit of extra effort. It's a perfect example of that invisible burden we're talking about.
So how did being so available become such a huge, unsustainable problem? Well, it all comes down to what we're calling the weight of yes. This is the point where her kindness, her inability to say no, just slowly turns into this crushing, unbearable load. And this was her mantra, the promise she kept making to herself, whether it was reading a book, or just going for a walk, or taking that online course she was interested in. Her own passions were always put on hold for a someday that just never seemed to show up. The calm never came because she was the one constantly calming everyone else's storm.
And the demands? They were constant. Like bam, a kid's last-minute school project. An urgent request that, of course, lands squarely on her shoulders to solve.
Then another request, this time from her husband. It's a simple question, sure, but it's just one drop in this relentless stream. Each one is a tiny task, but when you put them all together, they create this flood of responsibilities that she alone has to manage.
And it wasn't just her husband and kids, even her own sister would add to the pile, with that little phrase that is just so revealing, "You're at home anyway." It's this subtle little assumption that because her work is unpaid, because it's domestic, that her time is infinitely flexible and somehow less valuable.
And here's the real kicker. The better she was at her job, the more invisible her efforts became. The whole system ran so smoothly that nobody ever thought to check on the operator. They only saw the perfect results, not the incredible strain on the one person making it all happen.
Eventually, something's gotta give, right? And that brings us to the next part of her story, the body's debt. This is where we start to see the very real, very physical toll of all those years of self-neglect and stress just piling up.
The abstract idea of stress started showing up in very real ways. Her heart would race out of nowhere. She'd feel short of breath. Her hands would tremble. She started forgetting things all the time and found herself getting super irritable over the tiniest little things. These weren't character flaws, they were symptoms. Her body was screaming for help.
And this was the doctor's diagnosis. And it's such a profound shift in perspective. This wasn't just a bad week or not getting enough sleep. It was a long-term debt that her body was finally coming to collect. Every single yes had been a little withdrawal from an account that was now totally dangerously overdrawn.
So that diagnosis, that becomes the turning point. It forces Claudia to start the most difficult part of her entire journey, finally learning how to say no and setting boundaries for the first time in her life.
So how did she actually start to fix things? Not with anger, not with blame, but with a plan, a kind of new family contract. Step 1 was just telling them how exhausted she was. Then they started sharing responsibilities, simplifying the workload. Simple dinners are fine. And most importantly, she carved out 1 hour every single day just for herself, non-negotiable.
This comparison just shows the change so clearly, doesn't it? The old Claudia would have automatically said, yes, send them over, no matter how tired she was. But the new Claudia? A simple, calm, honest, today I can't. Everything has changed in those 3 little words. Of course, there was pushback. Her sister, who was so used to Claudia's infinite availability, actually called her selfish. But look at her response. No arguing, no getting defensive, just a calm, clear statement of fact. She basically reframed selfishness as what it really was for her, self-preservation.
And all of this leads us to the final and honestly the most hopeful part of the whole story, finding yourself again. This is all about what happens when you finally put yourself back on your own priority list.
The rewards weren't some big, dramatic thing. They were simple, they were personal, and they were profound. She started walking again. She started reading novels again. She picked up that online course. And what's so important here is that she didn't stop being kind. She didn't become a different person. She just stopped being last.
Her whole experience can really be boiled down to this one new philosophy. Saying no isn't a negative thing. It's not about rejection. It's not about being selfish. It's about protecting yourself. Saying no to the things that drain you and destroy you is actually the ultimate way of saying yes to your own life.
And so Claudia's story leaves us with this one final, really powerful question. It kind of turns the camera back on all of us and asks us to think about it. In the hustle and bustle of taking care of everything and everyone else, where have you placed yourself? It's a pretty crucial question to consider.